Okay, hey guys. Yesterday when we left off, Eghorn and Bobblewort, the troll and the goblin that had captured Alex and Connor, had pulled their cart into their kingdom. What was different about their kingdom? Clayton? It was all underground. As they were being pulled in, Alex and Connor couldn't understand where the houses were. It's because everything was underground. And then they were taken out of the cart and they were forced into a jail cell. "Get in there," Eghorn said, and slammed the cell door shut behind them. "What do we have in here?" Bobblewort said. He took the twins' bag to a table on the side of the room and dumped all of their belongings out onto it. "Stay out of there," Alex said as she watched helplessly. There, for the entire room to see, was the glass slipper, the lock of hair, the chunk of the basket, the map, the journal, the dagger, their sack of golden coins, and everything the twins had been carrying. Thankfully, the troll and goblin only seemed interested in the dagger and the sack of gold coins. They took those with them and dumped everything else in a pile of garbage on the side of the table. "Rest up, you're gonna have a long day tomorrow," Bobblewort said, and then he shared a laugh with Eghorn and they left the room with their cart. All the other slaves stared at Alex and Connor through their cell bars. They had sympathy in their eyes, so sorry that the twins were about to experience everything they'd endured for however long they had been there. "Does anyone know how to get out of here?" Alex asked, but none of them even responded, as if they had been trained not to speak. Even the children were silent. "How is this happening?" Connor grunted. He violently shook the bars of the cell, but they did not budge. "That's no use," said a voice behind the twins. "Those bars are made out of pure stone." Alex and Connor turned to face the prisoner occupying the cell next to theirs. Crouched over in the darkest corner of his cell was an old man. He was thin and had a long gray beard with tattered clothing. "There's got to be some way out of here," Connor said. "I've heard every man and woman say that when they first are brought here," the old man said, "but sadly, there isn't." "How long have you been here?" Alex asked him. "Years," the man said. And he leaned forward and light fell onto his face. His face was as tired and ragged as his clothes. He had a wandering eye so the twins couldn't tell which one they were looking at or speaking to. "Say, don't I know you two from somewhere?" he asked. The twins knew this wasn't possible, but the man seemed convinced, and for whatever reason, the man seemed oddly familiar to them too. "I don't believe so," Alex said. "We're rather new to the area." "I could swear it," the old man said. "Are you sure that I never traded you for a magic flute? For a chicken, maybe? Or perhaps a singing flower for a lamb?" "No, I'm sorry. We've never traded anything with you before," Alex said, and then she realized who he was. The wandering eye, the long beard, the raggedy clothing. Could it be? She pulled Connor aside. "Connor, he's the traveling tradesman, the one from the journal." Connor couldn't believe it. "Are you sure?" he asked. "Hey, sir," said Alex, kneeling down to him. "Are you by chance known as the traveling tradesman?" The man had to think about it. Obviously, the years of enslavement had taken a toll on his mind. "Yes, I believe that is what they called me," he said. He was happy to be reminded of a time when he wasn't a slave. The twins were so pleased to hear this. "Ask him if he knows what happened to the man who wrote the journal," Connor whispered into Alex's ear, and she nodded. "Mr. Tradesman," Alex said, "do you remember a man coming to you and asking about the wishing spell?" "The wishing spell?" The tradesman asked. At first, it seemed he had no idea what she was talking about, but then recognition started to dawn on his face. "Why, yes, I do. He was one of the last customers that I did business with before I was brought here. Silly lad. He talked about wanting to travel to another world, and I thought I was crazy." "Did he ever make it?" Alex asked. "Did he find all the items of the wishing spell?" "I don't know," the tradesman said. The twins slumped. "I never saw him again, so it's possible." He looked up at them curiously. "Why do you ask?" The twins looked at each other. They didn't know what to tell them. "Don't tell me that you two are chasing after the wishing spell too," he asked. They looked at each other guiltily. Connor leaned down next to Alex and began asking questions of his own. "We're trying, but we don't know everything that we're exactly looking for," Connor said. The tradesman laughed. "No one does. That's the beauty of it. Some people know the descriptions of the items that it requires, but no one knows what they are for sure for." "Like Hagatha," Alex said. "She only knew what the riddles were. The man she told them to had to figure out what they were on his own, but he could have been wrong." "What if we found Hagatha and asked her for her opinion?" Connor began. "Hagatha is dead," the tradesman said. "Dead?" Alex gasped. "How did she die?" "She fell into the thornbush pit," the tradesman said. "What is the thornbush pit?" Alex asked. "Good heavens, child, are you daft?" After the curse was broken on the sleeping kingdom, all the thorn bushes had shrubbery that grew wild around the kingdom. It was cleared out and dumped into a large and deep pit, the tradesman said. Hagatha was collecting some of the thorn bush for her home and fell in. "That's awful," Alex said. "She called for help for days, but no one would help her. No one wanted to help an old hag," the tradesman said. Just before she died, Hagatha cursed the thorn bush so that it would grow onto anything and anyone near it and pull it straight down to the bottom where she was trapped forever. "That's insane," Connor said. "Well, since then, however, it's been used as a wasteland. People from all over the kingdoms journey there to drop off anything that they never want to see again," he said. "I wonder if there's anyone else we could speak to," Alex said. "Whatever journey you were on, I'm afraid it's over," the tradesman said. "Once you're here, and there's nothing you can do about it." He turned away from them. A commotion came from up the tunnel leading to the dungeon. Trolls and goblins led the men and women who had been serving in the tunnels and the common room back into their cells. They all looked as if they could sleep for a year if they were allowed to. "Time for sleep," the troll ordered, and they extinguished all the torches in the room with a bucket of water. "And if anyone makes a sound, no one will be fed tomorrow." The trolls and goblins left the dungeon chuckling. The room was pitch black now. Alex found Connor in the darkness, and they rested beside each other. "I just don't want Mom to worry," Alex said with big, teary eyes. "The longer we're here, the longer she's going to be alone." "I'm sure Grandma is with her," Connor said. "They probably have the entire police department out looking for us. It'll be an interesting conversation once we get home and tell them where we've been all this time." "Thanks for being positive, Connor," Alex said. Despite the little comfort her brother gave her, Alex cried herself to sleep. Connor couldn't sleep. He couldn't stop thinking that Just a week before, he had been safe and sound in his own bed, fearing nothing but schoolwork and Mrs. Peters. And now, here he was, in the dungeons of another dimension, facing a life of slavery. My, how quickly times had changed. Bye, guys.